Hey, everyone. Welcome to Pastors Unfiltered. I am your co-host, Pastor Tony Matar, joined by my lovely co-host, the Reverend Bishop, Dr. What else are you?
Spiritual dad.
Coach.
Brandon Lee Beals is in the house. How are you today, PB?
I'm great. How are you, Tony?
I'm good because today is the NFL draft. We're recording this episode ahead of time. And I'm just believing in faith that we will pick up either an offensive tackle, UW's offensive tackle, or Michael Penix comes home. But the thing is, we just got Sam Howell, so I don't see how it's going to happen.
I'm wearing my Raider gear in belief that Michael Penix is going to the silver and black.
Did you see Coach Prime's tweet about Michael Penix the other night?
Oh, it's ironic because with media, he is the most polarizing person in the draft. But I have a gut feeling that NFL scouts, NFL head coaches respect Michael Penix for who he is. And I'm betting he does not make it past the Raiders pick. So, in fact, the Raiders might have to move up in the draft a few spots to be able to get him. But if he goes to the Raiders, I just want to tell all Husky fans, Husky Nation that's out there, you're welcome to be a part of Raider Nation.
No.
First off, our gear looks way cooler than Seahawk gear. It's especially cooler than like Kansas City Chiefs gear. So just come on, join Raider Nation, support Penix, support the Huskies. There you go.
Did you hear how Caleb Williams does not want to play for the Bears? I don't know what they're going to do with him. I don't know. They can't. I don't think they're going to trade him.
Money, Tony. Money. Money solves everything.
Money does solve everything.
Money makes Chicago seem warmer in the wintertime.
Yes, it does.
He's going to have so much money, he can just burn money.
Yeah. Well, welcome, everyone. Today's a special episode. We have our temporary intern co-host for the summer, David Diaz, with us.
Pleasure to be here.
And we have a very special guest with us. You know what's awkward, John?
What?
Is when you have a guest on the podcast and you talk them up, but they're in the room. You know what I mean? Like when you got to say all these really nice things about them. I'm not saying I wouldn't say these nice things about you, but you're right there. So it's like, kind of like.
So you prefer
talk behind my back, I guess.
No,
yeah. Well, I mean, you prefer saying offensive things to people when they're in front of you?
No, it's like, like when you talk about someone, you're like, oh, they're so good looking, they're great. And anyways, here's John, everyone.
You got to be careful what you say.
You know what I mean?
What you say to and about John now. I'm just warning you. Big things are coming.
Well, that's part of what I'm going to announce.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that. We'll find out today.
Wow.
Well, John's with us.
Do you need anything, John? Do you need it?
Well, welcome to the pod, Jon Plotner. How are you?
I am well, Tony. Good to be here.
Good to see you. I wish you and I can go to a Mexican buffet in Port Orchard soon.
There's a backstory to that.
There is a backstory.
Let's just move on.
Okay.
Let's just move on.
Man, a lot happening at the church. PB, you're about to go on sabbatical.
I am.
Holy
we are
crud.
recording this episode a little bit ahead of time. It's about a week and 2 days before I officially head out on sabbatical. I want to mention that last night, the Vegas Knights went up 2-0 against the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Let's go.
I did a 3-part parlay, hit all 3 parts of my parlay.
Oh.
I predicted that the Knights would win. I predicted that there'd be under 6.5 goals in the game and that there'd be under 3.5 goals in the first period. Hit all 3 parts of the parlay. So I was pretty excited.
Come on. That's
and
awesome.
Now, 2 more wins, and the Knights make it to the second round. And they knock off the number 1 seed in the playoffs.
That's going to be pretty awesome. Are you watching the NBA playoffs right now?
Don't care about the NBA. Once the Sonics left, I was out.
Do you know the Pelicans and the Thunder are in the playoffs right now?
The Pelicans and the Thunder.
Yeah, see. That's how you know this is a bad league.
The Pelicans?
I don't really.
That's how you know that league is dying.
Like the bird?
Yeah.
Is LeBron James still in the playoffs?
I think he's got but I think he's just going to play one more year in the NBA. I think he's going to wait for his son. They'll play his season together, maybe 2 more years, and then he's done.
I mean, his son
sucks.
Yeah, his
Bronny's
son couldn't even start at USC. He's solely going to get an opportunity because his dad is going to pay people and his dad is going to give people publicity. We just got back from Network Conference, too. We should mention that.
Yeah. I want to...
You're a full-on celebrity now. You spoke at Network Conference. How does it feel?
I tried to leave because I felt so uncomfortable.
So you now, like,
Oh Lord.
you're a known person, or did people start calling you for speaking gigs? Did you raise any more money for Seattle when you were there?
I need to talk to you about that, by the way.
What about it?
So for everyone listening, we just went to Network Conference. This is the conference put on by the Assemblies of God, our denomination. About 1,000 ministers, missionaries in Coeur d'Alene. And yeah, I was asked to speak. It went great. PB shared a great moment. He actually went on stage to thank the entire network for giving towards Venture Seattle. But then you told them we exceeded our fundraising goal. We need a savings account. You should have told them we're not even close.
I can't lie in front of a group of ministers.
We do need a savings account. But anywho, PB thanked them. It was very honoring.
So are you saying people didn't walk up to you with $10,000 checks afterwards?
No, because they thought
were
we're
like,
good.
Oh, okay. Well,
It was great. I had a good time just hanging out with our team. We had these things called GUIs. Have you ever seen a GUI?
I had one the first night. Morgan got a small one and I got a large one. And when it came in front of me, I was stunned.
So if you're wondering what a GUI is, it's like a chalice that's massive, like the size of a football. And it's just filled with like 9 scoops of ice cream, toppings, and it feeds a family of 5. But in our trip, there were some pastors on staff, I'm not going to name anyone, who had multiple GUIs in the span of 48 hours.
Claire Racer.
Dude, I don't even want to talk about Claire. She was so mean to me on this trip.
Oh.
She mocked me the whole time. She just kept making fun of me.
Claire can't do anything wrong.
Of course.
I do want to mention we stayed at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, and when Di and I checked in, we checked in early, and they were able to check us in, and they said, "Sir, we have great news. You've been upgraded." So Di and I got upgraded to the honeymoon suite, which was ironic. Then 2 hours later, Alex McGregor checks in, and he got upgraded to the penthouse suite.
I checked it. Okay.
That is of course that happened to Alex.
So when we checked out, this is what they told Di. They said, "Well, the reason that we upgraded you is we heard you were here for a ministers' conference, and we'd originally put you in room 666. And we didn't think that was appropriate for a minister, so we upgraded you." Here's my favorite thing that happened on the whole trip. I ran into Don Argue in the lobby, and Don pulls me aside, and he said, "So, how's your room at the resort?" I didn't realize this was a loaded question. You want to know how my room was? And I was like, "Actually, they upgraded Di and I to the honeymoon suite. We have a hot tub on our balcony." And I go, "Why? How's your room?" And he goes, "Terrible. They put me in the worst room." He said it was worse than a Motel 6 room. So Don is sharing this with me. This elder statesman of the AG gets put in like the worst room in the hotel. I end up in the honeymoon suite. So I'm like ready to swap keys with him.
Oh.
And then he tells me the story about how he greased the palms of the gal at the front desk. So if you don't know what that means, it's an Italian term for you slip them 100. But the best part was, this is Idaho. So you know how you slide and you hand somebody, like if you're in Vegas, you hand them a $100 bill,
Yeah.
They put you in a suite. All Dawn had to do to get moved up to a suite in Idaho was slip her a $20 bill. It's like
$20 can go a
everything's
long
cheaper.
way. $20 can go a long way. That's hilarious.
Anyways, we should probably dive into the topic at hand, don't you
Yeah,
think?
we should. Hey, quick shout out to our sponsors, Logos Bible Software. We encourage you to check them out for all your Bible study needs. Use promo code.
We are Venture.
You'll get a nice little discount. Thank you, Logos. Shout out HGTV for not sponsoring us yet. We will be addressing the dilemma between us and Lindsay and Leslie. It's coming. They started a show with the name Unfiltered in it. I wonder where they got that from. Just saying. Hey, let's dive in today. We have David Diaz, Jon Plotner with us. John, what's your middle name?
David.
You're kidding me.
I am not kidding.
John David.
John David. And David, what's yours?
I don't have one, surprisingly. I'm the one Hispanic that doesn't
You're
have 5
kidding
middle
me.
names. Yep.
All right. Let's right now, before we begin,
Yeah.
Let's come up with David's middle name. So we are going to declare right now what David's middle name is.
David John. Yeah. My father-in-law says
I got
Anthony.
it. Wilbur.
Oh, that's a good one.
David Wilbur Diaz.
I've met many Latinos named Wilbur
No, you.
from the Dominican.
No, I do have an uncle, Walberto.
So what do you think? Do you like Wilbur?
No, I was going to say Chad.
David Chad Diaz.
Diaz. Yeah.
Like Chad Veach.
I hate the name Chad so much, but it'd be so funny. Hey, David
Feel
Chad.
the love, David.
David
Feel
Chad.
the love.
I've never met a nice Chad.
All right. So let us know via text, user comments on Pastor's Unfiltered clips on Instagram. What do you like? Do you want David's middle name to be Wilbur or would you like it to be Chad? We'll let you decide, and
Yes.
we will let you know in the weeks to come.
Still voting for John.
What David's middle name is. David John. That's too sweet.
So PB, why are
We don't roll that way.
Why are the friends here today?
Well, first off, thank you, Jon Plotner, for being here, taking time off from work and joining us today. One of the things that John's here for a discussion with David, but it's also an appropriate time for us to announce what's next as far as John's involvement at Venture Church.
Yeah.
We have a process to become a board member, an elder, and we started this process with Jon last summer. He gets basically interviewed by multiple people, by every one of the board members individually, comes in for a formal interview, then we vote and decide, and that's how we add board members. It's a pretty lengthy process. And today is the official announcement that Jon Plotner has joined us on the Venture board.
Come on.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
the board.
Thank you.
What are these new buttons, Judah?
Wow. Will you just take a moment, just tell everybody what you're excited about with that level of leadership at Venture?
I'm just excited about Venture in general. And we've been here, I think, coming up on 4 years now and been involved in churches over the years on staff, et cetera. But I just love what Venture is doing. I love our staff. PB, you have gathered the most amazing staff of individuals. I put us in the top 5% across the country, probably even higher than that, but an amazing group of folks. And even just last Sunday, Revival Weekend, like there's amazing things happening here, and I just want to be a part of it however I can, using whatever experiences, gifts that God has given me along the way to help this place thrive and flourish.
Well, for those of you that don't know Jon, Jon serves at worship at the church. He works at PushPay.
Yes.
The thing that I'm excited about for you to serve on the board is I believe you add a deeply spiritual element to our board. All of your experience at other churches that you've worked with, plus your experience at PushPay, and then probably the icing on the cake for you with our board is how heavily involved you are already serving at the church and how close you are to so many of our staff. You are going to be an incredible asset to Venture, to the leadership of our church, and I want to thank you for your willingness to serve in that role.
Yeah, I feel more honored to just be asked because, again, I just love everything that's happening here, and however I can serve, it's an honor to do that.
Well, great. We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
Topic.
Oh,
Do you want to say something
I was
nice?
going to say, I've always said if we can't hire Jon, we should figure out a way to have him involved in some high level of leadership. And what?
I was going to count us down and we were going to say the same thing, but
About what?
about Jon.
What were we going to say?
I don't know.
We can't say that on the podcast. The name of our joint ministry, we can't say it on the podcast.
We can say it when Pastor Brendan leaves.
Okay, we'll do it in August.
Wilbur's pulling ahead.
Wilbur. But Jon, I'm excited that you're here, man. And thank you. You've been so supportive to Ariel and I ever since we navigated. Do we go to Vegas or not?
Yeah.
You guys have given us a lot of wisdom, you and Charlene. And Lenny loves Benny.
Yes, everyone loves Benny.
He's a good dog.
He is a good dog.
He's a good dog.
He has his own Instagram, by the way.
No way.
Yes.
Do your dogs have Instagrams, PB?
They do.
At Benjamin_Cooper_Plotner.
Wow.
Mini Aussies, Ozzy and Kona.
Are your dogs like influencers on social?
Rachel runs the account, and I think she forgot the password, and so hasn't done anything with it.
She has Atlas. Her heart's been claimed by someone else. All right, PB, let's dive into today.
This is going to be another announcement, kind of an explanation of something that's going to take place beginning in August. It will take place over about a 2-year period of time, but it is a little bit of a transition in David and Ali Diaz's life. I'll kind of set the whole thing up, and then we'll let David kind of explain. But as many of you are aware, David's wife, Ali, has been in med school. She finished her undergrad and been applying for med schools. And we were all praying and hoping that she was going to end up at the University of Washington Med School, because that would have made life really simple. But as Providence would have it, she ended up getting accepted into a med school in the Yakima area. And that began a process of discussion with David and I. And Di was involved, and Christian was involved, and Jon Plotner's here because Jon was a great mentor and kind of spiritual sage to David as he was wrestling through all of this. And I want to read a verse because I really think it sums up where our heart is at with all of this. And Paul was teaching the church in Ephesus in Ephesians 5. He was talking about the different roles that we have in our life, and specifically the role that a husband and a wife have in their relationship. And Paul said this, he said, "Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it." It's this idea that Jesus laid down his life, that he died for the church. And one of the responsibilities that we have as husbands is to be willing to deny ourselves and lay down our lives for our wives. One of the things that I've always said about Di is that it's a privilege to watch my wife's ministry become more and more influential, more and more national in her influence and in her recognition. And it's because it's not just me that's anointed to do ministry, but my wife is anointed to do ministry also. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, I was praying through what my 50s would look like. And one of the words that the Lord gave me personally was that part of my 50s was me cheering my wife on. And for years, she had kind of denied herself for the purpose of my career and my ministry and my influence to increase. And that starting in my 50s, that I was to focus on the church and really encourage her to step out and be everything that God had for her. And it is this mutual respect of each other's anointing, calling, and gifting. And that's how, a husband and wife really partnered together in their marriage, but in addition, in their callings and giftings. And David is an unbelievable worship leader, incredibly gifted, and his wife has a passion and calling to be a doctor. And I would say, I think when all of this was presented to us, what we're about to explain to the church here was unanimously supported by the pastoral staff, by the board, because we don't just believe in David, we believe in Ali. And there's times where Ali has to deny herself for David, and there's times David has to deny himself for Ali. And I think what you're going to hear is an example of someone loving his wife as Christ loved the church and was willing to lay down his life for it. And this is David pausing some of his callings and dreams he has for his life so that he could see his wife's dream move forward and how he can honor and love her. So on that note, I teed you up. Why don't you just kind of explain a little bit of the process and where this has landed?
Yeah, so it's kind of been you get your undergrad, and it's like 6 years of school before you start your last 4, and then that leads into residency and whatnot. But so Allie's just been working crazy hard, studying, getting her undergrad, got that by the time she was, I think, 20, 21. Has been taking an insane amount of science classes and then studying for the med school entrance exam, which is the MCAT, which is like, it's the hardest thing I've witnessed someone do. Like there was a point where, you know, after her undergrad, she's taking 2 years of classes to actually like qualify and have all the prereqs to apply and actually start med school. So she hadn't taken any physics. Part of the MCAT is physics. She had to teach herself physics prior to taking the actual classes.
Wow.
To, you know, score well on the MCAT enough to be able to apply and get accepted and whatnot. So it's just been a crazy process of just watching someone do something insanely difficult. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's truly, I have an admiration for my wife and her grit, her work ethic, how hard she pushes herself, and how she finishes everything she starts, and everything that she chooses to do is really hard. So it's really encouraging. But she took the MCAT, submitted her application. The application took months to complete, and that's just your first application. And then you get secondaries. After secondaries, you get offered interviews, or you know, you might fall off at that point for certain schools. So after interviews, we ended up with an opportunity to end up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Barf.
I know, but I would have been close to AG corporate or headquarters, which could have been cool.
Except you're Foursquare.
That is very true. Come on, Foursquare Gospel.
Where is the Foursquare headquarters?
Los Angeles. Come on.
Oh, of
Way
course.
better.
Of
Local
course.
bar. Sorry.
Whoa, Judah, we need a button.
You like we're not paying.
We need a canceled button. We need a canceled button.
I'm only making fun of them because they allow wine in their denomination, and the Assemblies of God are not big wine people for some reason.
What?
I'm indifferent.
Just wine?
Anyways, keep going. Keep
Well,
going.
this is unfiltered.
They allow
They
bourbon.
allow bourbon, cigars. Ooh. Anyway, sorry. Where was I?
Make it sound like we're
You're explaining how you almost ended up in Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm not going to Kansas City, Missouri. Also could have landed in Erie, Pennsylvania, and that is not an adjective. That is the name of the city. But
It's even worse.
you could also use the adjective.
David Wilbur would have been amazing in Erie,
Erie,
Pennsylvania.
Is that near Scranton?
I don't know.
Okay.
Then there was this Pacific Northwest University opportunity in Yakima, and
The Palm Springs of Washington.
Love
which,
it.
if you've seen the sign and you've also seen the show Schitt's Creek, have you seen that show? I wasn't just saying the S word. That's an actual show.
It is.
I read
It's
my
right.
Bible.
He's totally Foursquare now.
He really is. Now he's cussing on our podcast.
Okay. I've been listening to Mark Driscoll. The sign, the Welcome to Yakima, the Palm Springs of Washington sign is a lot like the Schitt's Creek sign. Like they're both just like gross looking, you know? So she got this offer. We decided we want to be as close as possible to family and our support system and whatnot. And, you know, as all this is happening, I was kind of maybe to a certain extent, like in denial. Like, is this happening? Is this going to happen this year? You know, 3% of applicants actually get in.
Oh.
So I was just like that. The odds are like not in anyone's favor, right? But you know, we've just seen God's hand through it all. The fact that we had multiple opportunities, it could have been. I mean, just to have 3 opportunities, that's actually not common for anybody that's familiar with the process. Like they'll understand that. So, anyways, in the process, I've been praying and I've been just asking the Lord for clarity. Like, God, if it's not here and you're actually going to move us, like, give me peace about that. Give me, like, call me into that. And God did, and I just felt the Lord say to me, like, I'm calling you to be obedient in this season, as in all seasons. What I need you to be obedient to is, like, just support your wife. And so then I asked the Lord, well, then release me. And I felt God say, well, I'm not releasing you. So all this is like leading up. She gets the offer at Pacific Northwest on like a Thursday or a Friday. Pastor Brandon finishes speaking a message, and this was like probably a month and a half, 2 months ago at this point. I say, hey, I'd love to chat. And he was like, I don't know, you said something about like, oh no, where'd you get offered a job? And I was like, that's not what it is, but we should chat. So we grabbed we ended up talking in here, and I share all this with them, where she got offered to go to school, where she had landed on going, and where we had decided would be best for our family, and that I feel called into a season of supporting my wife. Very like that. That's like my, I don't know, top priority and whatnot. But I also did not feel a release, and that kind of started
How do you navigate that? That sounds that sounds very tense.
It was
Confusing.
Honestly, in the last couple of weeks, I've been processing like the emotions and the stress and like the pressure that comes with all of that. I understand that moving, that happens for everybody. You move because a spouse gets a job somewhere. I don't know, that this stuff happens to everybody, but it was just, I don't know. It was intense because it wasn't okay, we're going to move and like this job makes more sense. It was like, we felt God saying, you're moving, but this is going to work out. And honestly, I feel like when we first talked, we were like, how do we see this working out? What we were committed to was figuring out a way. And that started a series of bi-daily meetings, weekly meetings, and just conversations and brainstorming. But honestly, I think it really was a test of faith. I think what doesn't make sense to us and makes sense to God is the hardest thing to be obedient to and to follow through with. But I don't know, you just got to stay the course.
And really, what we want to do here is kind of explain to the church the way things are going to work for the next 2 years, partially so that there's clarity on what David is doing and why you might not see David in the office Monday through Friday, but you'll see him here on the weekends. And as we explain kind of the way that this is going to work, everything is set up with this understanding that we love Allie. We believe in Allie, that as the pastor of the church, Di and I don't just believe in David, but we also love and believe in Allie, and we want her dreams to come true too. And it meant that if David and Allie are going to be living in Yakima, we were going to have to make some compromises with David if he was going to be able to continue to lead worship at Venture. Also meant that David was going to have to make some compromises and lay some things down that he loves about his current role that he can't do remotely. And I want to fundamentally just say a couple things. So if I have any future staff that are thinking, oh, the exception has been made, I can work remote. I actually don't like remote work for pastors. I just will be very honest. I think our job is a ministry of presence, and we have to be available. So any of my staff that might be hearing this thinking, well, this could work for me too. It's not, I will make you also a deal that if your spouse is pursuing a career in being a doctor and gets accepted into a med school that is not in the Seattle area, I will have a conversation with you too about remote work. So that is the exception. If your spouse is pursuing being a doctor, there it is. There's the exception. But so you will be, come this fall, you will be living in Yakima.
Yeah, so we have a house out there already. We'll be out there full time by August 1st. And I will be traveling into the Mill Creek area to lead worship on Sunday mornings. In addition to, whatever evening, fourth service, Saturday mornings at 5 a.m., whatever Pastor Brandon wants, I'll be there.
And the goal is that once or twice a month, David's here from a Sunday through Wednesday also.
Yeah. So, a couple times a month, ideally a chunk of time, about a week at a time, be in the office. I've actually worked through spending time with people. I've shared this with some of the people on our team, and it's not ideal, but there's so much opportunity to, like when I'm in town, I don't have Lewis to go walk, or I don't have, a wife to go have dinner with. Like when I'm
Lewis is your dog.
Lewis is my dog, my dog's son.
His wife is Allie.
Yes, just letting our listeners know.
When I'm here, I'm here. I'm all in. I'm ready to lead worship, ready to hang out with people, ready to love people, ready to have good conversations, ready to have hard conversations, willing to invest in the church. And I'm excited. It's a true honor to be able to continue to be a part of this family. What's wild is this August I hit 8 years on staff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So practically, David has done a phenomenal job building an extraordinary worship ministry at Venture. Ironically, when we interviewed Jon for our board, Jon shared very spontaneously and he has experience working with mega churches. And why don't you just kind of share your comment, Jon, about your perspective of our worship ministry here?
Yeah, I was part of my role when a previous church was worship ministry for about 16 years. And for me, whenever I go to a church, can compete right alongside those folks. So David has done a phenomenal job of raising an amazing team. I mean, and as a young leader, to have done that is pretty impressive. And that's, someone asked me also, like, what do you enjoy most about serving at Venture? And it's not worship per se, because I love that aspect, but it's all the young leaders that are emerging. And I see them, watch them, like I look at Megan and Eric and all of our amazing worship leaders, and watching them grow and being a part of that behind the scenes of encouraging them and just watching this flourish. It really is a privilege. And David, you've done an amazing job of nurturing and stewarding this really well. And it's exciting to see that you still be able to do that going forward.
One of the things that David has been able to do is just create an incredibly deep bench of not just worship leaders at Venture, not just worship team singers, but musicians across the board. One of the ways that I describe it to my friends nationally is a lot of churches have like one, maybe two really good drummers. And oftentimes churches are begging, hey, we need a guest drummer for this revival night and things like this. And our drummers are so good at Venture that Kellen is an extraordinary drummer, doesn't play the drums here. He runs media. Judah got a college scholarship playing the drums, doesn't play the drums here, is our broadcast director. Both Kellen and Judah are the guest drummers for other churches when they have big events. And that kind of gives you an idea that across, and by the way, Tony is also a drummer.
I did play a couple worship nights.
Yes.
This was prior to my time.
I have not heard that. That's news.
Well, that tells you we went from the day when we needed Tony to play the drums, where
I didn't have a choice.
Everyone that's listening doesn't even know that Tony plays the drums.
Can I say one more thing? What maybe people don't know is a lot of those big mega churches, the one that I was involved in, they pay
all their musicians.
Yeah. They're either all full-time staff. I mean, you look at a stage of 20 people, they're either full-time staff or they're paid to come in on the weekend. And there's mixed philosophies behind that. There's good points. What I love about Venture is nobody's paid. I mean, other than David as a staff member, but no one else is paid. And the heart behind that is all the people that show up on Sunday are not there because they're getting paid. They're there serving, and they're not just serving, people walk in and see one service and see they're not serving an hour. They get here at 6:30 in the morning, and prior to that, they've been practicing and listening and spending who knows how many hours prior to that. They get here at 6:30 in the morning and don't leave until 12:30, and they get nothing other than the pleasure and the honor of being a part of what God is doing here. And that culture, and I never hear anyone complaining. Like on a long weekend like Easter, people are all in, excited about what God is doing. And that is a culture, you can have great musicians and all that, but to have that culture of people really part of this family and part of this community is another amazing part of our worship that makes it what it is.
Yeah, I think another great example of that is Erica and Ethan Wall help with our Seattle campus, and Erica's been in the church since she was a little kid and has been involved with worship. And I remember when they told me they were making the transition, it really built up to this big goodbye. And I was sad. Since Erica has been 15, she has been the person that's brought my pulpit or my table out before I go up to preach. Like since she was 15, she's been doing it for like 10 years, right? And they had their big goodbye. And then the 3 consecutive weeks afterwards, Ethan and Erica were on the worship team at Mill Creek still. And it's because of how much they love it.
Yeah.
The quality musicians, anointed worship leaders, love being together, love worshiping together. And David has done an incredible job building that team. And then the other thing that David has done a good job is his team, broadcast-wise, social media-wise, production-wise, has increased too. Like we have 3 full-time staff people that work underneath David in that department. And so he's been just done an incredible job leading. So that is the thing I want people at Venture to know, that this isn't just a good worship leader. Mm-hmm. This is a anointed, gifted leader whose role is about to dramatically change. And the way that I would describe it is David was truly the worship pastor, production pastor of the church. And for a period of time, he's going to become our worship leader because of the fact that he's not going to have the time to invest in the people that he's had before. But David is such a gifted worship leader that this season is worth it for Venture to do that. I think, let me just ask David a question. Why don't you tell them how difficult it was for you to lay that down for this period of time?
Yeah, it was a pretty wild, like, internal battle, but I just think that there's no better thing to do and no greater reward than, I just keep coming back to, on the flip side of that, I just get to support my wife. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, there's just the joy of my life and the honor of my life is to be married to my wife and to love her and to support her. And I'm just excited for that. I think that I had to ask God, like, hey, help me through this, Lord, give me peace. And he gave it to me. So while it was hard and I like struggled to wrap my mind around it, I think so many leaders or pastors wrap their identity around the things that they do. I feel like I feel free and peaceful. I don't feel burdened. I don't feel frustrated. I don't feel nervous. I don't feel stressed out. I'm really just filled with gratitude. So,
and there's a hopeful time frame for this. And why don't you fill everybody in what the hopeful time frame is?
Yeah. So the first 2 years of her last 4 years of actual schooling are in classroom, like on campus classes. So that's this next school year and the following school year, followed by the last 2 years, which are her clinical rotations, which those actually bring us back to this area. So we'll be back in a little bit under 2 years. And yeah, we'll be back and things go back to normal.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I watched my brother, who's a podiatrist, go through this the last 10 years. His time at med school, he didn't have a social life. Like, Shaddy did not hang out with people. He didn't go out on the weekends. He studied. He was in the books. And then he traveled every month when he was, after med school, he was at a different hospital every month for a month. And I think it's really commendable, David, and that it's interesting to me how, there was a day and age, and there's cultural norms, but I also understand, some women feel called to just be at home, raise kids, like that's their ministry, that's what they do. But we're in a day and age also now, it's so different, where husbands lay down their desires for their wives, which I think is clearly biblical, as Christ laid down his life for the church. Just see our wives thrive, to see our wives take the lead. I've noticed, Ariel's done that so many times for me, and we've had to do that. I wish we could do it more times for her. We haven't had that chance yet, but to serve her more, to let her kind of lead what she wants to do and go for it. So I think it's commendable, David. And I really hope that anyone listening who's married, or about to get married, that, hey, this is a mutual love. Yeah. And yes, we lead our families well, but we also consider them, and we consider their calling, that God calls them just as much as he calls us.
And the challenge with this is you take two unique people that have dreams and goals and visions for their lives, and you bring them together, and the Bible says that the two become one, and then you have your together dreams, vision, and goals. And you still have your individual goals and dreams, and there's seasons of your life where those goals and dreams are under the submission of someone else's and their seasons. And this is just, it's a 2-year season. The hope after 2 years is that you will be back fully functioning in your current role.
I'm ready to be back already.
I don't think he comes back to his current role. I think it's part of his role.
Well, I want to jump in on that comment.
I have a prediction.
Well, the exciting thing about this for the rest of David's team and the rest of our church, as I've seen this happen before, is David has filled a lot of gaps because of his experience, talent, gifting, and everything else. What this creates for the rest of the team, and some of your team is in this room, it creates a gap, creates a vacuum that these folks get pulled into, and now gives an opportunity for some of the other people to actually, cut their teeth at leading in ways that you have. And when you come back, I think it's along with what Tony's saying, when you come back, some of the things that you've been doing, other people have stepped into and do it better than you did because of your leadership today, which is going to open opportunities for you to do other things like maybe writing and recording music and some other things like that you've not had the capacity to do. And so it's really exciting for all these emerging leaders around you. And that's my challenge if you're listening to them, is this is your opportunity to step in and fill in the gap. And this is some of your best mentoring and leadership in this next season to be able to fill those gaps.
I was going to say it. And I say this with all honor, like the weekend's PB would be gone and he'd ask me to speak on Sunday. Oh man, it's like, there's your front door to go for it. Yep, not to prove yourself, but to like grow, to say, hey, I could take this on. And those are the moments that have stretched me and grown me the most. Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited for one of the beauties of this next season is that I get to focus on personal growth and personal growth that impacts, my job, my role, my responsibilities. But one of the things that I'm most excited about is to kind of come under your wing in a new way and just pursue leadership coaching and growing in, this new remote situation, but also like when I come back, I truly want to be built up. I want to be like, I already feel like I want to fast forward and just get back, but I want to jump in. I want to, just do whatever is needed. But I have a feeling I'm going to be really eager to be here, really eager to be, in the office with my coworkers, teammates, with our people, our volunteers. But I'm excited to see what God does. Like I truly want to take advantage of this next season and see what God wants to orchestrate.
It's going to allow, as John said, the opportunity for new leaders to emerge and people to fill in gaps and step up. I guess to sum all of this up, this is going to be different, but it's not necessarily going to be bad. One of the things that I want to ask from everyone at Venture is there be grace in this process, that there be understanding in this process. Again, you are used to a full-time, very present worship pastor, and for a 2-year period of time, that is going to be different. David's not going to be as available, as accessible. You're going to have to rely on other people. Now, our assumption is that what experience that you have on Sunday mornings won't change at all. That if you're just primarily a Sunday morning interacting with David person, you won't see anything really different. It will be people Monday through Friday that it will be different, and we're asking for grace. This is something new. This is not a new precedent that has been set at Venture. This is a one-off situation where the circumstances aligned, where we made a decision as a leadership that having David's influence, his leadership in worship, was worth doing something that probably in most circumstances we would not be willing to do. It's going to be good for our church. It's going to be good for our staff. It's going to be good for our worship team. And in the end, 2 years, we're going to blink and it's going to be over.
Time flies here. I want to say one thing and ask a question. I want to honor my pastors, my lead pastors, Brandon and Di, more than bosses and leaders and pastors. They've been that through this process for Allie and I, but they've been mentors and spiritual parents to us, just on a level that I could have never expected. So thank you for being just the greatest pastor anybody could ask for, truly. I want to thank our board. I want to thank you, John. I want to thank the rest of the board for just their grace and support. I want to thank Pastor Christian, who also came alongside of this whole thing and helped build structure and build potential for this to actually work. And I just want to thank our church. Just thank you guys for just this is the greatest church in Washington, like greatest church in the region. There's nowhere else I'd want to work. I'm sure you ask anybody on our staff, they would say the exact same thing.
I always used to say, if I go work in another church, it can't be in our state.
Leaving.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm going to LA.
Nowhere. Oh,
Come on, praise God.
come on.
Come on. No, I truly am filled with gratitude, and I'm Team Venture. I'm loyal to Venture. I'm committed to Venture. I wanted to ask, what was your prediction in 2 years?
I just think you're gonna come back, and the worship thing will be of cranking. We'll have figured out a really good system, but I think there's gonna be something you discover in these next 2 years where you're gonna go, that you're kind of afraid of, but you know you should probably go down that road.
You know, I was telling someone about this, and I prefaced it with like, God, it's calling me into a new season, blah, 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 it's going to look different. And they were like, oh no, I think I know what's happening. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And they were like, Pastor Brandon's decided to tee you up to be the next lead pastor of our church. And I laughed so hard.
You would make the church wear Hawaiian shirts every Sunday.
That would be probably the worst thing that our church could ever do.
Finish your bachelor's degree, then work on a master's degree, and then we'll talk. We want to thank you for listening to Pastors Unfiltered. I hope that answers some questions. We're excited about John's future as a board member of our church and David's journey that he's going to be on for the next 2 years. We want to thank you for listening. Again, like, subscribe, share this podcast, tell your friends about it. It really does mean a lot. Go on iTunes and Spotify, give us a 5-star review. If you don't want to give us a 5-star review, don't leave a review. Meet with Tony, complain to Tony. We want to let you know that next week is a monumental moment on Pastors Unfiltered. I am coming back from my sabbatical to record a podcast. Why am I coming back next week, Tony?
It is our 1 year anniversary, everybody. Come on, Judah.
Make Jesus famous.
What the dude, bro?
Judah is like not here today.
Bro.
It is a monumental moment.
We made it.
52 weeks.
No one thought we could.
Well, the
and
benefit
we're here.
is we've actually consistently podcasted for 52 weeks. That says a lot.
You're so famous, someone has stole your title.
Thank you, John.
We're going to talk about all of this next week. We have special guests. Judah, we're going to give you one more chance to do a better button.
Wait. I have an idea. You know what we should do for the next podcast? We should call our moms into the show.
Our moms will make their debut. Okay. All right, we're closing this
we're
episode
done.
and going back to the old board.
See you guys next week.
Raiders roll.